So, Karina, take care of the house while we're gone. We're gonna have a great time with our real family. On the day they were leaving for their Hawaii trip, Josh said that to me. House sitting? What does he mean? With a puzzled look on my face, Ryan bluntly tells me that I'm supposed to house sit. But that's something I can't just accept. As I start to object, Josh speaks up again. If you're bored, just clean the house or something. I was stunned. And then, I was certain it was intentional. From the nonchalant way my mother-in-law and Josh were acting, it was clear they knew about this beforehand. I was just being used for their 3-person trip. Make sure it's spotless, not a speck of dust. Facing their smirking faces, I realized arguing was pointless. I contained my anger and forced a smile. Sure. If that's how it is, I can't help it. Have a good trip. If they're going to be like that, I won't stay silent either. As I watched them leave the house looking so happy, my heart was burning with anger. My name is Karina. I'm a 45-year-old housewife. Despite being 45, I only celebrated my first wedding anniversary last month. My husband is Josh, originally my boss at work, and he's 50 years old. He's currently a manager. I respected him for his work ethic and aspired to be like him, putting my all into my job. My hard work paid off, and before getting married, I was promoted to a manager position, which made me even more dedicated to my work. I wanted to be recognized by Josh, to be as competent as him. Before I knew it, these feelings turned into love. But by that time, I was already over 40. Josh, although single, was divorced with a child. I had no intention of disrupting his or his child's life with my feelings. However, to my surprise, he proposed to me. And so, I started dating Josh and eventually got married. Right after we started dating, I went to greet his family. Considering our ages, it was a relationship with marriage in mind. I really wanted to greet his family. Josh's parents were divorced, so he was living with his mother and his son from his previous marriage, Ryan. Before visiting their house, we stopped by a bakery. We bought pudding and pastries from their favorite bakery. Wonder if they'll be happy to see me, an old lady like me. What if they're disappointed? Having never experienced meeting a partner's family before, I was nervous on the way to Josh's house. But Josh laughed it off. No way. You look at least 10 years younger, and you are younger than me. But still. Mom and Ryan will definitely like you. Encouraged by Josh's words, we arrived at his house. Mom! Ryan! We're home! Josh called out as we entered the house. But there was no response. They knew I was coming to greet them today. They couldn't be out. Are they not here? Maybe they went shopping? Come on in. Thank you. Josh led me inside the house. Thinking I'd wait inside, I entered as well. But as I stepped into the living room, the tension hit me again. Oh, welcome back. Dad, welcome home. To my surprise, there were his mother and son, Ryan, in the living room. What the heck, if you're here, at least respond. Josh said that, but the two of them talked to him as if I was invisible. I thought I must have heard wrong. Let's have dinner, shall we? My mother-in-law, as usual, ignored my presence and headed to the kitchen. Josh stopped her. Before that, say hello to Karina. Karina, this is my mom and my son Ryan. Ryan is 16 and goes to the high school nearby. Nice to meet you. I'm Karina. I've been working with Josh. It's a pleasure to meet you. They listened to my brief introduction but quickly looked away. My fears were confirmed. They had no intention of welcoming me. It seemed they already disliked me. Come on, Ryan. Say hello. Prompted again by Josh, Ryan finally spoke. I'm Ryan. Reluctantly, with a sullen face, Ryan said that without even looking at me. But it's probably rare for a teenager to warmly welcome their dad's girlfriend. I smiled and spoke. Ryan, I've heard about you from your dad. Nice to meet you. There was no reply, but I kept my smile. My mother-in-law watched with a sharp gaze. You're just after Josh's title and salary, aren't you? How shameful to get married at this age. She said that disdainfully. Sure, I was attracted to Josh's competence. But I wasn't after his title or salary. There's no such thing as an age that's too old for marriage. I'm grateful to have met someone wonderful like Josh at this age. But Ryan, hearing those words, glared at me as if I were an enemy. He must think the same as my mother-in-law. It's harder for a teenager like him to accept me. But eventually, they'll realize they're mistaken. I genuinely love Josh and wanted to be his wife. I believe the day will come when they understand that. I truly love Josh. I'm happy to become part of your family. I greeted her again. She just snorted and turned away. She wasn't ready to accept me yet. But I was wrong to expect to be accepted today. Mom, Ryan, try to be a bit more understanding. Josh sighed at them, but his defense was enough for me. No, it's okay. Oh, I heard you both like it, so I bought some pudding. I said that and handed over the gift I had just bought. Ryan showed brief interest but then scoffed. Pudding, huh? Should have been cake. Wait, but I thought you liked pudding. Don't be silly, Ryan. She chose pudding because it's cheaper. Their lack of understanding of my care and feelings for Josh was clear. I felt a bit disheartened, but I had to live with them after marriage. I couldn't retort, just kept smiling. After a few months of dating, Josh and I got married. We skipped the wedding and wedding photos because Josh didn't want them. He's divorced and we're not young. I wanted to wear a dress, but I kept that wish to myself and moved into Josh's family home. Even after the initial meeting, I still couldn't get along with my mother-in-law and Ryan. Living together filled me with anxiety. Mom and Ryan will eventually see how wonderful you are. Josh would always encourage me. Believing in that, I moved in. But days into living in the same house, there was no sign of them warming up to me. You can at least clean, right? Yes. I quit my job to be a housewife, as Josh wanted. I spent my days with my mother-in-law, always tense. I did the cleaning, laundry, shopping, and cooking. All were new to me, but I tried my best. Still, she always complained, bringing up my age. At 45, what is this cooking? You said you cleaned the hallway, but there's still trash. Before I moved in, the house was never that clean. With 2 men and an elderly mother, it was understandable. But once I joined, she became very demanding. Please hang the bedding. And wash the sheets daily. Sure. And Ryan's jacket is torn. Please sew it up for him. My inability to say no was taken advantage of, and the demands kept increasing. Right. Bleach my pillowcase. I like it perfectly white. But whenever I showed any hesitation to these growing demands, I'd be mocked with, I heard you were competent at your job. Doesn't seem like much. That's why, no matter how much work was piled on me, my desire to please my mother-in-law and my pride in doing things perfectly drove me. Josh was always considerate of me. However, one night, I learned a shocking truth. It was about 6 months after we got married. Josh was out late at work that day, so I went to bed first. Past 11 p.m., I woke up and Josh wasn't home yet. But I heard voices from the living room, so I got up. Leaving the bedroom, I heard Josh, who had just returned, talking with my mother-in-law in the living room. Is Karina asleep? Yes. Really, sleeping without waiting for her husband's return. Typical of someone who's been single until recently. Don't say that. It can't be helped. Josh defended me against my mother-in-law's criticism. I was happy about that, but felt awkward interrupting a conversation about myself. Then, I overheard more of Josh's words. That's why I married her. We can train her. I felt uneasy and listened further. But weren't there any other women? She's not particularly attractive. Her family isn't wealthy. And at 45, she can't have kids. What benefit was there for you to marry her? I was shocked. I knew I wasn't liked, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. My efforts to be liked, everything felt negated. But surely, Josh would defend me. I told myself that, holding back tears. True. But there was a benefit. What benefit? She was outstanding at her job. I was in danger of being surpassed by her. I was stunned by his words. If it had continued, she would have become the director sooner than me. The boss liked her too. Her? Yes. Unlike regular women who take maternity leave, she didn't marry and was dedicated to work. Useful for the company. Could these really be Josh's words? I leaned against the wall, feeling faint. Unaware I was listening, they continued talking. So, there was a plan of making her the director. But I couldn't stand it. That's why I made her resign. She was single, likely had savings, and not from a wealthy family, but still useful. Soon my mom will need care, so it was all beneficial for me. That's when I first understood the real reason Josh married me. I felt miserable and pathetic, believing I was truly loved. The idea of being cared for by her is unpleasant, though. My mother-in-law's words stabbed me again. I quietly returned to the bedroom. Full of anger and regret, I couldn't sleep, but I closed my eyes tightly. Eventually, Josh entered, but I ignored him and kept my eyes shut. Then, he looked at my sleeping face and muttered, "Really, it would have been better if she were a bit more attractive." After that, I lost all desire to be liked by my mother-in-law or Ryan. Knowing Josh's true nature, I thought about divorce, but it had only been half a year since our marriage. Unable to bring it up, our first anniversary was approaching. We never had a honeymoon, right? My boss wants to give us a gift and time off for a trip. One evening, Josh said that. What? Your boss? Yes. Since we didn't take a honeymoon, he wants us to take it. There was a company benefit for wedding leave. But I had already resigned, and Josh, being married for the second time, wasn't eligible for that. Since you were an important employee, he decided to give it to us. I was genuinely happy with his words. So, we decided to go to Hawaii with that opportunity. I used my savings for the trip, our first time abroad. Ever since hearing that conversation, I've been filled with regret about our marriage. But when I think about it, in a marriage where the husband is 50 and the wife is 45, there are bound to be some grievances in any household. I can't just chase ideals. Maybe this is a chance to change my mindset and keep pushing forward. Josh handled all the travel arrangements. He wanted to make it a family trip, including his mother and Ryan. I felt a bit reluctant about them coming along, but I couldn't dismiss Josh's feelings. So, I reluctantly agreed to his proposal. And so, this trip became a combined honeymoon and family vacation. On the day of departure, having finished packing the previous day, I picked up my suitcase and headed to the front door. Looks like you two are all set. When I arrived at the entrance, my mother-in-law and Ryan, both with their suitcases, were already there. I smiled at them, and my mother-in-law returned a sly smile. Karina, it feels bad to have you pay for the trip. No, it's a family trip after all. I forced a smile, feeling an ominous sense from her words. Josh then joined in our conversation. Shall we all go? Yes. The moment I replied. Ryan smirked. So, Karina. Take care of the house while we're gone. We're gonna have a great time with our real family. He said that to me. House sitting? What does he mean? Noticing my puzzled expression, Josh said. Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. We couldn't book a ticket for you. I'll take you somewhere else next time, so please house sit for us. His words, spoken brightly with a laugh, were incredibly hurtful. Wait. What do you mean? You gotta leave for our marriage, right? And I contributed to the travel expenses from my savings? Unable to accept this, I spoke up. Josh sighed. There's no helping it. If you're bored, just clean the house or something. I was stunned. And then, I was certain it was intentional. From the unsurprised reactions of my mother-in-law and Ryan, it was clear they knew about this beforehand. I was just being used for their 3-person trip. Make sure it's spotless, not a speck of dust. Following Josh, my mother-in-law said that too. I contained my anger and forced a smile. All right. If that's how it is, I can't help it. Have a good trip. If that's their attitude, I won't stay silent. As I watched them leave the house happily, my heart was burning with anger. How shall I retaliate? Yet, unable to do anything right away, I found myself cleaning the house. I was always under the watchful eye of my mother-in-law. Maybe it's time for some decluttering, I thought, when suddenly someone knocked at the door. Maybe Josh and the others forgot something. With a stern face, I headed to the front door and was surprised by the person standing there. Who might you be? Is this Josh's house? Yes. I'm Josh's wife, but who are you? The elderly man, a stranger to me, widened his eyes upon hearing my words. He then smiled and introduced himself. Josh remarried? Nice to meet you, I'm Josh's father. What? I exclaimed loudly, frozen in shock. I had heard that Josh's parents were long divorced. This was the first time I met his father. Trying to call Josh was futile. There was something suspicious. However, after talking a bit and confirming he truly was Josh's father, I greeted him. His voice and face, so much like Josh's. "Nice to meet you. I heard you and his mother were divorced, so I'm sorry I couldn't greet you earlier." His eyes widened at my words. "Divorced? Me and his mother?" And with a voice as if he was hearing it for the first time, Josh's father exclaimed loudly. I nodded, feeling overwhelmed by his presence. He slumped his shoulders and muttered, "I can't believe he said that. Am I no longer part of the family?" As it turns out, Josh's father was just working in Alaska, not divorced as I had been told. He had been sending money every month, but I was never informed about any of this. His words left me feeling uncomfortable. Ryan's comment about real family earlier had stuck with me. I had tried my best to become part of their family. But I was never accepted, and probably never will be. "I'm sorry, you came all this way, but Josh and the others won't be back for a while." I said this, trying to be considerate. Then, looking at me, Josh's father asked, "Why?" "It's a family trip. You're his wife, aren't you?" He tilted his head, puzzled. I laughed self-deprecatingly. "They went with the real family, so I'm house-sitting." "What?" Josh's father clenched his fist. Apparently, he felt a sense of camaraderie with me. Later, we went to a local cafe. On the way, neighbors who saw Josh's father greeted him with "long time no see" and "welcome back." Not seeming to find it strange that he was with me, confirming he was indeed part of Josh's family. "I've been living in Alaska for about 10 years now." He began as soon as we entered the cafe. Come to think of it, there were occasional gifts from Alaska. When I asked the mother-in-law, she said they were from relatives. I never doubted her words, but they must have been from Josh's father. "I usually come back every year, but this past year was especially busy, and I couldn't make it. So, I took this time off to come back, but that's how it was?" I didn't expect the house to be empty. I tried to contact them, though. He laughed, troubled. But his voice lacked energy. Understandably. He hadn't been informed about Josh's marriage, and was led to believe they were divorced. Moreover, being left out of the family trip must have been a bigger shock to him than to me. I had a feeling. They didn't want me to come to Alaska, and were against me quitting my job and returning. I guess I'm not considered family. Well, and to leave not just me, but also his beloved wife behind. What is Josh thinking? I shook my head at his words. I'm not loved. What do you mean? I ended up telling Josh's father the truth. About how Josh hindered my promotion, married me for caretaking his mother, and because he thought I had savings. That's why they probably didn't feel the need to tell you. Josh's father was speechless. Then, his face turned red, and he started trembling. I'm sorry. He apologized to me in a strange voice. You don't have to apologize. The ones at fault are Josh and the others. I have my own responsibility for not knowing. Then, taking a deep breath, he said. They told you to tidy up the house, right? Yes. Then let's clean it up so well they can't complain. He said this with a determined tone. Not understanding what he meant, I watched as he stood up and briskly walked away. I followed him, and he headed straight to our house. Arriving before me, he used his key to open the door and went inside. Several days later. It must have been around the time the three of them were due back from their trip. As I glanced at the clock, my phone rang. Hello? What's going on? Explain yourself. Josh's frantic voice came through the moment I answered. I cleaned up as you said. Where are you? Stop with the excuses and come here. Josh shouted at me and hung up. I was fed up with their one-sidedness, but ignoring them and getting resented wasn't an option either. Plus, I needed to proceed with our divorce. Reluctantly, I got up and headed to the house. When I arrived, I found the three of them outside, unable to enter, surrounded by their luggage. Welcome back. Karina? What on earth is going on? My mother-in-law exclaimed, pointing at our house. Well, it was our house, but now it's not. A for sale sign was prominently displayed at the entrance, and the locks had been changed. There was no way in. Ryan said, coming from the back of the house. Probably looking for an unlocked door. Ryan, you know if you had gone in, it would have been breaking and entering, right? What? Stop laughing and explain this now. Josh yelled at me, red-faced. There's not much to explain, as you can see. I cleaned up the house as I was told. It's now property of the real estate agency. You're kidding. What right did you have to do that? Josh was furious, thinking I had sold the house on my own. My mother-in-law and Ryan were also glaring at me furiously. But they didn't seem to realize something. Right? You think I had the authority to do that? What? Whose name was on this house? As soon as they heard that, the color drained from my mother-in-law and Josh's faces. They realized it wasn't my unilateral decision. You don't mean? That's right. Your father, whom you kicked out, sold the house. He said a house where he can't live has no meaning. My mother-in-law, upon hearing this, frantically started making phone calls. Probably trying to contact Josh's father, but it seemed she couldn't reach him. Her expression was ashen, but it was too late for regrets. Josh's father had made up his mind about the entire situation. You must have told my husband something extra. But I quietly shook my head. No. I only told him the truth. The truth? That I heard you were divorced and that I was forced to quit my job and tricked into marriage to stop Josh's career from being hampered. Josh and my mother-in-law turned pale at my words. No, that can't be. Sorry, I overheard your conversation. Josh remained speechless. My mother-in-law started shrieking at me. But her words were drowned out by the commotion. The neighbors, drawn by the noise, started to appear, and my mother-in-law and Josh lost their words under the spotlight. Ryan was still looking for a way into the house, but I just smirked and said, Well then, that's the situation, so I'll be leaving now. Wait! Where are you going? Where? I'm going home. Oh, right. This is from your father. I handed a piece of paper to my mother-in-law. It was the divorce papers Josh's father had left with me. Seeing it, she just gaped. And this is for you, Josh. I then handed another set of divorce papers to Josh. He was still red with anger, but couldn't shout in front of the neighbors, just clenched his fists. Goodbye, then. I left them there and moved on. After selling the house under Josh's father's direction, I bought a nearby apartment and moved there. I still had some savings from before I was married, but now that I was getting divorced, I needed to restart my job. I humbly contacted the HR department of the company I used to work for. I'm getting divorced, could I possibly be re-employed? Despite being away for a year, the HR department was happy to hire me back. Before I left, I worked under Josh, but they were considerate enough to arrange so that I wouldn't have to be under him anymore. Thank you so much. Having you back is a blessing for our company. The boss is also pleased. So, I arranged things with the company, and my return to work was settled. Then, from the next day, I started working again. The company's CEO was very pleased with my return to work. However, a divorce. Well, even in marriages that start with love, couples face various issues. I wasn't in love. Moreover, I haven't officially divorced yet. What do you mean? I disliked gossiping, but I had to explain why my address was different from his. I've handed over the divorce papers to Josh and have repeatedly asked him to sign, but he's been reluctant. Now that the house is gone, it seems the three of them are living in an apartment, and Josh is unhappy about my purchasing a condo. The divorce isn't progressing smoothly because it seems he's after my new home and money. After I explained, the CEO's face grew troubled. In cases like these, it's better to have a third party involved. Let me talk to him. He then called Josh in. Karina? Why are you here? Josh was surprised to see me as I hadn't informed him of my return to work. I've heard Karina's side. Now I'd like to hear yours. Well, don't worry, I'm not just taking her side. The CEO spoke to Josh in a non-threatening way. But Josh turned pale and started sweating. Even though the CEO said he wasn't just on my side, Josh seemed reluctant to confess his actions. Josh began to speak haltingly. However, the CEO's expression grew sterner with every word. So, you used the leave meant for her and her money for a family trip? That was... Karina agreed to it. Agreed? I was left at the doorstep on the day of departure. Realizing the seriousness of the situation from the CEO's expression, Josh began to apologize. "I'm sorry. I regret it. I truly do. It's too late for your apologies now. If you're really sorry, divorce me." "Okay. I understand," Josh muttered reluctantly in front of the CEO. Finally, a new chapter in my life could begin. I felt relieved. However, Josh's demeanor changed completely as soon as we left the CEO's office. "Dragging the CEO into this, what are you trying to do? I married you, even though you were single, and treated you kindly." I was astounded by his sudden change. Just minutes ago, he was apologizing. "You haven't reflected at all," he snorted in response to my retort. "Reflect? You should be ashamed. Instead of staying silent, you went and blabbed everything to my father and the CEO. I didn't deceive anyone like you did. I just told the truth. So, is it okay to say anything if it's true? Think about me, my mom, and Ryan. That's why you could never become a real part of the family." His words infuriated me. I had always considered them my real family. They were the ones who pushed me away. So I let go of that desire. The order was wrong. "It's fine. I'll divorce you. Since you've returned to work, I'll make sure to exploit you more than ever. Live your lonely life." He laughed triumphantly. Then, "Director! You're here! Director!" Staff from my new department approached me. Yes, I've returned as the director. Josh was taken aback. Not only had my department changed, but my position had too. "Sorry to disappoint you. I'm not the same person I was before marriage. You better focus on your work." I smiled at Josh and left with my staff. The director is the head of the headquarters and the heads of each department. I thought it was too much responsibility for me, but I decided to live for the company that employed me, so I accepted the responsibility. As you said, from now on, I plan to live only by working. In order to make this company better, I will not tolerate people who deceive or disrespect others, no matter how good they are at their job. Please take more responsibility for your own words and actions and dedicate yourself to your work. As I walked away, I heard a thud. Turning around, Josh was on his knees, holding his head. Seeing this, I turned forward and started walking again. Eventually, Josh couldn't handle being my subordinate and resigned. He used his severance pay to buy back the shabby house. Although I wondered why he would bother, it seemed my mother-in-law refused to move anywhere else. I laughed out loud at the thought of spending so much money to buy a new house like that. After Josh left, I heard he spread rumors about me, but no one took his words seriously. Instead, people's true feelings are revealed when they're on the brink. The manager was able to do his job, but he was a disappointing person, his reputation plummeted. Somehow, I became the poor wife he drove away, and everyone became kinder to me. It was a complex situation, but not entirely incorrect. I left the rumors uncorrected as they didn't affect my work. Meanwhile, Josh's family started living together again. His parents finalized their divorce, and without his father's support and no job, they struggled. Ryan, unable to attend college, became unruly and barely went to high school. Like father, like son, they both seemed to only think about running away from problems. Despite the difficulties, my mother-in-law struggled on, taking care of her son and grandson. It may be difficult to take care of her son and grandchild, but even if her back is bent, they are her true family, so I hope she will take good care of them for the rest of her life. As for me, I'm fully dedicated to my job as the director. Though I had decided to live only for work, a colleague I've always been close with suggested I meet her son. I thought I was done with marriage, but it seemed a waste to give up on the future because of just one failure. I'm considering meeting him once work calms down a bit. There's no one who can only find happiness in work. I believe there are countless opportunities for happiness in my future.